I want to talk about a topic today. We're going to talk about some of the words that are used that people think are actual valid words and basically are disempowering you if you use these words, if you give them any kind of credence. Patriarchy, privilege, mansplaining, toxic masculinity, manspreading, appropriation, cisgender, rape culture, microaggression, social justice, trigger or triggered, woke. It's all made up BS. And you can see how those things basically take power away from people. Why am I talking about this here on this channel? Because this is the Bulldog Mindset. And I want you to be prepared and I want you to be equipped to recognize these type of things and these labels and how dangerous they are. First of all, for you not to use them, okay? And second of all, for you not to let people say these things and to think that these are just normal parts of vocabulary and they're meaningless, or that they actually have meaning. Let's talk about here about some of these things. One of them that's thrown around a lot is patriarchy. Okay, so patriarchy, it doesn't make sense. Like the thing that they're using here when they're using words like this, like patriarchy, is if you acknowledge that patriarchy exists, okay, which it doesn't, all right. But if you acknowledge this and mainstream media keeps on repeating this thing, then you're basically accepting a whole bunch of assumptions that come with it. That's the problem with this kind of stuff. And just to be fair, I really don't like the same thing on the red pill side of the equation, right? A lot of the MGTOW guys, okay, I agree with a lot of their philosophies, but I disagree with a lot of it. And when they throw around words like cuck and thought, soy boy, and stuff like that, of course, I've been guilty of saying some of those things myself, unfortunately. But when they throw around those words, and it also has the same effect, it's not a good thing. Those aren't real words either. I think patriarchy is one of the most destructive ones because it presumes that this thing is true and that this exists. If you even say that the word, if you even acknowledge that word, you're basically agreeing to a whole tenet of quote truths that are not true, that are false, that are up for debate, let's say that. Same thing with privilege. Privilege, again, what does that actually mean, right? When you say privilege, you've been in a more privileged situation. What does it actually mean? No, it implies a whole bunch more than the simple word of privilege. If it just implied the word privilege, that'd be different, or income disparity, that's fine, but it implies a whole bunch of things. It implies that, you know, the implication here is that no matter what you do, you can't understand someone else, you can't understand how hard they've had it, and you are ignorant because you don't know what it's like to have things difficult, and you can't possibly ever be disparaged because you are in a better position than everyone else, and you owe something to society and other people because you got a better deal than everyone else. I don't support it. It's a victim mindset, right? All these things you can see are victim mindset. Mansplaining, same thing. I've talked about this in the Gillette ad. You can see in the Gillette ad where I talk about mansplaining if you're interested in that. But anytime, you know, that you say that a man is saying something that sounds in any way condescending, you don't like it, you can say he's mansplaining. Okay, anytime he's contramanding a woman, you can say he's mansplaining, and it's a victim mindset. You're letting someone actually oppress you in some way. That is ridiculous. Again, it implies again that such a thing exists. There's no such thing as this. There is bad behavior, there's rude behavior, there's patronizing people, okay? But there's no such thing as mansplaining. By getting you to say the word, you're accepting all this whole bucket that comes with it. It's not one idea, it's a bunch of ideas, and it's a bunch of presuppositions, okay, that you're accepting when you're giving validation to this word. So it's better not to give validation to it. You might say, well, why are you saying it in this video? Because I'm basically saying that these words, like, don't use these words, aside from explaining why not to use them, all right? Manspreading, same exact thing. Again, another ridiculous concept that you don't even have to justify it, right? See, a lot of guys, I think a lot of what we're getting sucked into here, which is basically to explain away that, well, men are bigger and they take up, like, you know what it is, but ask the question, what is that? That's not a word. Is that a word? I've never heard of that before. That doesn't make any sense. Calling these things and classifying and grouping people, again, it's a way to marginalize, it's a way to discredit, to remove power from people, and that's what the goal of this kind of stuff is. Cisgender. Not only are you straight, but you don't understand the plight. You can't talk about any kind of gender issues. You can't talk about sexuality issues or bisexual or gay or homosexual, any of that stuff. You can't talk about that because you're just a cisgender white male, right? That's how the term is used. Rape culture, another assuming one, another one that subsumes a bunch of things. I see less of it now than there was in the past. Like, we want to look at history and see, you know, I mean, when was the last time, I don't know, that we like pillaged a village and killed all the men and raped all the women? That's been a long time. I mean, maybe that happened somewhere in the Middle East, and maybe in Africa somewhere, in some of those, you know, in some of those backwater type of places. But in general, in most of the world, that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen in Western culture. I'm not saying that people don't ever get raped. I'm just saying that there's not a culture. I don't see anyone promoting rape. This is something, again, that it doesn't even need to be justified. Microaggression. Again, another one. Ridiculous, right? Who came up with this? Again, it's a way to be able to say that if someone does something that you don't like, you can call it a microaggression, and you can, you know, target this. You can say they're microaggression against some minority, or against females, or against whatever it is, whatever you want to say, instead of just confronting and directly saying that they did something offensive to me. People need to have a little bit thicker skin, okay? If someone actually did something that's wrong or a crime to you, you can deal with crime. We have ways of dealing with crimes. If someone did something wrong, you can stand up and you can say it. But microaggression is really a wimpy way of trying to basically say that this person doesn't have, like, not listen to someone. And anytime we ever try to shame people, we're, in my opinion, we're automatically wrong, right? Shaming people is not a positive trait. Like, even if they're doing bad things, shaming people, making people feel shame, okay, does not ring you know, a happy bell with me and speak of being a good person and a caring person. Shaming people is a tool that all these other words tend to do, okay? Because if you shame a person, then you can change their behavior, you can manipulate them. Triggered, you're basically invoking the victim mindset. Woke, that's the final one I'll talk about today. And I actually liked the term woke, like awoken, but it was stolen and used now to say that you understand all these social justice arbitrary things, right? So there's this whole subculture that's going on that's inventing all these words, okay? And the problem, like I said, with even giving any kind of credence to these words is that what you're doing is you're allowing all of the implicit statements that they're making to be true, right? When you use a word like patriarchy, okay, and you actually give it credence when someone says that, and you argue against that type of thing, what ends up happening is, like, you're basically having to, it's a whole logical trick of getting you to accept these presuppositions. My best advice is that when someone says these things to you, you just make them explain themselves. What is this? Oh, what is this concept? That seems kind of weird. Why would you say something like that? Like, oh, that's interesting. That's an interesting concept. What makes you believe that that's true? Where's your proof of that? Why do you think that's so, right? Like, ask stupid questions, okay? So that they can't just lean on these words and just accept these things as truth when they're not truth. All these things are up for debate. I'm not saying, again, don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying that there's not some validity in some of these, and some of the ideas behind some of these words, okay? There's some things that happen that are bad, but when you use this word and you basically can categorize people, and you can use this to deflect real logical analytical argument, okay, then it's bad. And so this is, again, victim mindset. It's the opposite of what we're trying to do on the channel, Bulldog Mindset. I'll talk to you next time. Take care.